Kayla Anderson, first and foremost, a Washington State Coug, all right?
There you go.
She's going to join us right now, talking to us all about the Titans. Kayla, how you doing?
My fellow Coug, I'm doing well. Gentlemen, I hope you're doing well.
Hey, Kayla.
I'm ready to rock this. Let's talk some football. Let's talk
All right.
some Titans.
So Tennessee gets the bye, number 1 overall seed. First 5-loss team to have a number 1 overall seed since like 2002. But with all that goes into Super Wild Card Weekend, it seems like a lot of people they weren't talking about the Titans, so people have kind of forgotten about them. But they're the best team in the AFC. They're getting arguably the best running back in the world back to play. Why are people not talking more about this Tennessee Titans team right now?
Yeah, and I can really speak to that being on the local level, and being a reporter here covering the team day in and day out. Look, Nashville, Tennessee is the hot spot if you want to come party, if you want to go to a honky tonk, if you want to come listen to country music. And it's becoming a really big sports city as well. But when it comes to the Titans and just the national respect, it's just not there yet. And they've been to a Super Bowl, but they haven't won it. And so I think it's just something until you prove it, maybe they're not going to get that respect that they deserve. But being a person who's covered them in and out this season through ups and downs and adversity and playing 91 different players, it's a team that has clearly earned this number 1 seed in the AFC. And at times, it's not looked great. And I think that's why another reason you look at maybe you're not getting the national respect, because they have losses to the Jets. They have losses to the Houston Texans. But, they've also got some great wins against Kansas City, against the Bills, against the LA Rams. And so if you're an outsider looking in, that's maybe the reason why this isn't the team jumping off the page at you. Statistically, they're not the team jumping off the page, but when you look at what they've gone through this season, how they've gotten it done, and how they arrived at this spot, you got to give them respect.
Yeah, you do. I mean, flat out. First game out after the Derrick Henry injury is at L.A. on a Sunday night, and they thoroughly dominated. This defense, led by Kevin Byard, has been a dominating force. They've gotten pressure up front. What's been the difference in the maturation of this defense and how they were able to solidify and kind of bring this team along when they needed them midseason?
Yeah, and that's a great question, Ryan, because when you look at the defense last year, it was a complete dumpster fire. The word communication that we had to use in our press game conferences, because there was none, it was just mind-blowing. And every time we would ask about what went wrong or why they were so bad on third down, they didn't know. I mean, it was just all over a mess. And at the time, you didn't really know what was going on in terms of who was running the defense, because they had not named Shane Bowen the defensive coordinator. They were saying he was calling the plays, but he was not the defensive coordinator with the title. This year, I think what happened is from training camp, you kind of felt what this defense wanted to do, how it wanted to set the tone this season, because they were flat out embarrassed by how historically bad they were last year. Third downs was historically bad for this Tennessee Titans team when it comes to overall numbers. And so you could feel like the drive that they had, and, they named Shane Bowen defensive coordinator. They also made some really money off-season moves. And Vic Beasley and Jadeveon Clowney did not work out the year before. And this year they went and got Bud Dupree and Danico Autry. And to me, that was the biggest difference for this defensive front. Because when you get pieces that complement the other guys that are already on the line, like Jeffrey Simmons, who is a second-team All-Pro this year, and Harold Landry, who has been pretty good for us for the most part since arriving in Tennessee, when you get the whole line that complements each other and does it with just 4 guys, that has been the complete difference maker. They've been able to get pressure on the quarterbacks. They've been able to, generate sacks this year, something that they couldn't do at all last year. And that really takes a lot of pressure off the secondary and allows guys like Kevin Byard to do what he does best, which is, talking down the ball, and he's having a Pro Bowl season, obviously. So that has been the biggest difference, is really getting the right pieces up front that all complement each other.
We're talking with Kayla Anderson, WKRN Nashville sports anchor there, covering the Tennessee Titans on a daily basis. All right. Also the injuries, right? A.J. Brown's injury, Julio Jones's injury has continued to placate that football team all year long. Derrick Henry being out. But seemingly it feels like all three are as healthy as they've been maybe this year. Tell us a little bit about where they're at and what you expect from them this weekend.
Yeah, what's been crazy is last year you saw what that offense did, right? It was a machine, and they put up some really good numbers. They were really hot in the red zone. But this year, where you thought it might be the same or even better with the addition of Julio Jones and having A.J. Brown and having Derrick Henry, it was completely the opposite. And that's because it was just injury after injury after injury. And you really do have to give them a lot of credit for what they've been able to hold up this entire time. When losing Derrick Henry, going in and getting backs that fit your system, and Deontay Foreman's come in and fit right in, and he's put up pretty good numbers. They've been able to continue to really base everything off the run game. Ryan Tannehill's numbers aren't off the page, but he manages everything extremely well. And the biggest thing is his players respect him and look at him as a leader of that team. Now, with saying that, they got healthy at the right time. They're getting all their pieces back for the playoffs, and that means also you're enjoying a bye week that they had a little bit more rest.
Right.
Derrick Henry spoke today for the first time since pretty much before the injury. And you could just tell how hungry this guy is. I've covered a lot of athletes in my career, and this guy is something special. It's not just because he can go out there and put up numbers. It's something that he brings to this team, and all his teammates talk about it. It's just the presence on the field that he has. But also, he is that home run hitter, right? I mean, he can change a game. He can change the momentum of a game with one run. And so he's back. He's healthy. He has not been activated, obviously, yet, but we're expecting that to happen in the next couple of days. They wouldn't allow him to talk if that wasn't the case.
Right.
So he's definitely ready to go. He was in full patch yesterday, going, hitting other guys, and he looked great. And then A.J. Brown, also a guy that has dealt with some injuries this year, but is back, is healthy. And Julio Jones has been, I guess, the big question mark for this team. They expected more out of him, but when it comes down to him, if he can perform in the postseason, then it was worth getting that guy here. And right now he is healthy. That hamstring seems to be fine because he's not going to go out there and maybe put up a ton of yards or be the number one guy, but he's going to make some big plays when you need it to go downfield. And I think that having all those pieces going at the same time in a healthy offensive line, maybe they can start to get this offense going in the right direction.
You made reference to the 91 players that have suited up and played for this football team this year. I had a few concerns with the bye week, with guys coming back off injuries, Julio Jones and pieces being put into place, Derrick Henry having not played forever and all of a sudden being asked to carry the load for this football team, and if that could backfire on them. How do you feel about that? Players that haven't played that much and now are going to be expected to do a lot in a playoff game against a very capable and quality opponent in the Cincinnati Bengals. What's your thought process around that? Or is that just something that's, that's the way it is here in Tennessee this year? We're going to play whoever can play is going to play, and we're going to play the best we can.
Yeah, and I think that's a fair question because whenever you have guys coming off of, IR or just guys that have been banged up all year, I think you don't know exactly what you're going to get, especially when you're ramping it up to another level in the postseason. I mean, that's just different play. That's playoff football. What I will say about Derrick Henry specifically, because that's the guy we're all looking at, right? We all don't really know what to expect out of him. And he admitted today that this is the first major injury he's ever had to deal with in his career. And so you've got to be thinking, first and foremost, mentally, is he ready to go? And then physically, he seems fine, but I don't necessarily think they're going to just throw him out there. I could see them potentially getting him, 15 to 20 carries at some point of the game. I think they'll start to ramp it up if they need to, but you got those other backs you can rely on too. So it's not going to be all pressure on Derrick Henry, which is a good thing because in a way you just have to see how he reacts in game action. But Mike Vrabel is a guy who he's a dog. Like he you look at his career, I mean, he competed his butt off, he grinded, and that's what he expects his players to do. And he's going to protect them, but he's also going to let them go out there if they feel good and do what they need to do. And a guy like Julio Jones, he's been kind of resting on and off throughout the season with that hamstring injury. I know that's a guy that they definitely monitor and, use in certain situations. I think he has a lot to say with some of the things, too. So I think he's going to be a full go, and nothing will be, held back in that regard. And same with A.J. Brown. This guy is somebody who just loves to compete. This is a team that's based off of their head coach's identity.
Right.
So they're going to put those guys out in the field. They're going to work them.
All right, before we get you out of here, we're speaking with Kayla Anderson, WKRN Nashville sports anchor, covers the Tennessee Titans as good as anybody. Why do you think that this Titans team is being overlooked? I have some theories. Maybe not. Maybe it's not because you don't have the prolific quarterback. Mm-hmm. Why do you think people are looking past the number one seeded Tennessee Titans heading into this weekend?
I think first and foremost, you look at the other teams in the AFC, and you look at what the Kansas City Chiefs and the Buffalo Bills have done here recently, especially in the last games that they had, and you're like, whoa, okay, these are legit teams. Like, what the Buffalo Bills did just was incredible the other night, and Kansas City looked pretty darn good as well. And I think anytime you're kind of put in the category with teams like that who have quarterbacks that are always talked about, that really are relied on and are a reason why the team goes as it goes, is because of those quarterbacks. And then you look at the Titans, and nothing against Ryan Tannehill. He's been actually really solid for the Titans since arriving here and taking over when Mariota was benched. I think that's the first and foremost thing. The quarterbacks run this league. Ryan, you know this, you're a former quarterback, right? I mean, that's going to get the attention. So I think that's a reason. And also, I just don't think the Titans did enough on offense consistently this year. They didn't put up the numbers to look at them like that. But again, I think their defense is overlooked a little bit. And I think once they get the pieces back and they're finally healthy, things are going to probably start turning in the right direction. If they can beat the Bengals on Saturday, maybe they're going to get a little bit more respect. But we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, well, they'll get to host an AFC championship if that were to play out. So let's hope for the best down there. A lot of good things. Great coverage this year, Kayla. It's been fun to watch. Fellow Coug have that success down there. So thanks for coming on the show. Appreciate you being a part of it.
Hey, thanks, Ryan. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Kayla.
Take care, Kayla.
Kayla Anderson, everybody.
Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.